You ever been there? It's like 3 in the morning, you're staring at the ceiling, and your brain decides now is the perfect time to replay that super awkward thing you said at a party 5 years ago. It's so weird, right? Our brains just love to keep a highlight reel of our absolute worst moments, while all our wins just kind of fade away. But what if I told you there's a reason for that? That it's not just you, and there's a way to rewire that loop. Let's get into it.
And this really gets to the heart of it. I mean, you could have 100 people tell you did a great job, but you'll fixate on that one tiny little mistake. So why? Why does that one cringe memory feel so powerful, so much more real than all the good stuff?
Okay, so the first thing you really got to understand is that this is not a personal failing. You're not just being too sensitive. What's happening is actually a super old, baked-in survival system in your brain that's just, well, it's working overtime. It's a biological thing that hasn't really updated for the modern world.
So, let's pull back the curtain and see what's actually going on in there. We're going to look at the why behind that shame spiral. Think of it like a glitch in your brain's original programming.
This is where we need to totally reframe what shame even is. We think of it as just this awful feeling, right? But from your brain's point of view, it's actually a filing system. It's a memory prioritization system. Its original job was to learn from social screw-ups so we wouldn't get kicked out of the tribe. It literally puts a giant red flag on a memory and says, hey, pay attention, this was bad for our social survival. Don't do it again.
Now here's the problem. The system works a little too well. Your brain tags that embarrassing moment as a super important lesson. But instead of just learning it and moving on, it puts that memory on a constant repeating loop. It just rehearses it again and again and again, long after the lesson has been learned.
And this is where it gets really dangerous. That one memory, that one cringe moment, it stops being just a thing that happened. It becomes a shortcut for how you see yourself. It's not a moment you had anymore. It becomes a story about who you are. It's the huge difference between thinking, wow, I did something awkward, and believing, wow, I am awkward.
And look, this isn't just some abstract mental game we're playing. Getting stuck in that loop has real practical costs that can mess with our everyday lives. So let's talk about the price we end up paying for this spiral.
It's pretty clear what happens, right? When you're constantly replaying your blooper reel, your confidence just shrinks. You start holding back in social situations because you're terrified of making another mistake. And maybe the worst part? You start looking at every new opportunity, a new date, a job interview, through the filter of that old humiliation. You're basically expecting to fail before you even start.
Okay, so that's the bad news. It can feel pretty bleak. But here's the really good news. You are not stuck with this. Your brain learned this pattern, which means it can be retrained. The secret isn't to fight the feeling. It's to start feeding your brain better, more accurate information.
This is the big shift we're aiming for. It's about moving from the spiral, where a moment you had becomes who you are, to this new way of thinking, where a moment you had is simply what you learned from. See the difference? The event is still there, but its meaning completely changes. It's no longer proof of who you are. It's just data for who you're becoming.
So how do we actually do this? It comes down to 3 concrete steps. First, you've got to separate how intense the memory feels from how relevant it actually is today. Just because it feels huge doesn't mean it still matters. Second, update the story. Your brain loves to hit pause right at the worst part, right? You need to tell it what happened next. You survived. Nothing catastrophic actually happened. Add that ending. And third, you have to practice being seen, even when you're not perfect. Hiding just tells your brain that messing up is a huge threat. Being seen anyway teaches it that imperfection is actually survivable.
And when you start doing this, you're actively taking the steering wheel. You stop being a passenger in this runaway loop, and you start becoming the editor of your own story.
And honestly, this is the most powerful part of it all. The second you understand the pattern, the shame spiral starts to lose its grip. You can see it for what it is, not some deep character flaw, but a buggy, and most importantly, a trainable brain loop. You can stop beating yourself up for being irrational and start treating it like a habit you can change. So the next time it happens, and it will because we're all human, the next time you make a mistake and you feel that cringe coming on, just remember you have a choice. That loop doesn't get to write your story anymore. The real question is, what story are you going to choose to tell about it?